Welcome to Trouble with Tish. I am Tish and I be Trouble. And if you're a returner, welcome back. Today we've got Mask Monday and Chapter 12 of The Rise of the Deva'shi by Jennifer Alice Provost. So if you want to find out what happens next, stick around.
Troubles on the mind, hands around your throat, out in open waters trying to stay afloat. Remember to forget the future and the past.
Alright, today's mask is the tea tree mask from this brand here. Antioxidant, anti-allergic, and nourishing. I'm going to stick that on our face and then get to the book. Alright, we've got our mask on, we got our Egger suit mask on, and we're going to get going on the story. Like I said, we are on Chapter 12. The next few days passed in an instant as Aylmar and I fell into an easy routine. We met every morning before first dawn on the grand steps of the palace. I marveled that no matter how early I arrived, I could not manage to arrive before him. When I questioned if he ever slept, he replied that sleep was unattainable if he knew I was awaiting him. After we shared our morning meal, we wandered about the palace complex until the child's sun rose and watched the various tradesmen and other residents of Tegernan as they began their day. Aylmar always apologized as he left, proclaiming he wanted to spend the entire day with me and promised that he soon would. After Aylmar departed, I always returned to my chambers to rest for the remainder of the day until it was time for my next patrol. Had anyone asked, I would have denied avoiding Kieran, but I was without a doubt. After he tried to kiss me, I did not want to give him the wrong impression, especially not now that Aylmar and I were finally becoming close. Not to mention, Aylmar had already gotten the wrong idea about my friendship with Kieran, and I did not want that to happen again. 5 days after our little talk behind the Sola, I returned from my patrol to find Aylmar waiting for me next to the gate. Without a word, Finley took Enna's reins, as my first hunter again led me to the arena. We bypassed the entrance to the playing field and climbed the narrow steps to the gallery, where the instructors barked orders to the nuvi and the queen oversaw the trial by combat. "What are we doing here?" I implored yet again. "Be patient," he replied, clearly enjoying his little secret. When we emerged into the gallery, I saw that it was illuminated by softly glowing candles. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw a cushioned bench replete with thick furs, lest the night was cold. Normally, the gallery had no furniture, not even a chair, with the exception of the queen's during the trial. My breath caught in my throat, for he had taken the most utilitarian of spaces and made it an inviting retreat. A lover's retreat, I thought. A smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. "When did you do all this?" I asked as he retrieved a jug of wine. "While you were patrolling," he replied as he offered me a glass. "There's food as well in case you are hungry." He indicated a platter set upon a low table. I sat next to him and sipped my wine and leaned against his shoulder. "What would the instructors say if they knew you used their gallery in this manner?" I teased, imagining their indignant faces if they found us snuggled together. "You know how they enjoy shouting at the nuvi from on high." "I am first hunter. They need to follow my orders," he reminded me, drawing me into his arms. "Remember, my lady, you're the only one who openly defies me." His lips traveled to the side of my neck, and I giggled, as much from his soft breath as his gentle reproach. "And," he continued, turning my face to his, "I left strict instructions for them to not use the arena at all tomorrow. We are quite alone." Aylmar kissed my cheek as he leaned over and pulled the fur over our legs. "And this is how you spend your nights, dragging benches around the Sola instead of sleeping?" I asked, my words playful as I nestled against him. "I don't spend nearly as much time with you as I want," he murmured into my hair. "Every morning it becomes harder to walk away from you. Then Finley told me how you don't sleep after your patrols and spend the rest of the nights seeing to Enna." He softly brushed his hand over my cheek, his eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "I thought you might prefer my company to that of your horse." I stared up at him, hardly able to contain my joy that he went to all this trouble just to be with me. "All of this for me?" He pressed his lips to my forehead as he replied, "Anything for you." We remained on the gallery until the child's sun rose, which always signified the end of our time together. Elmar walked me to my door, his arms around my shoulder, and apologized again for not spending the day with me. As always, I told him I understood why he could not, that he was seeing to his many tasks, and turned to enter my chambers. He caught me about the waist and carried me inside. He thrust my back against the wall as his shining hair fell around my face. "Come to me again tonight," he said, holding me with his beautiful eyes. "Come to me every night." "What about my patrols?" "After," he said with a smile. "Must you question me about everything?" "I don't want to defy you by avoiding my duties," I replied as I placed my arms about his neck. "I need to be certain of what you want." As he wrapped his arms around me, he was very, very specific about his desires. That night I held the second watch, as always, and I did not see my first hunter again before I set out with Arknan. The wind was calm and the sky was cloudless, and the ruddy light of the moon illuminated the plain below the palace almost as thoroughly as the sun's. Arknan and I took advantage of the increased visibility and rode farther afield than usual, both of us enjoying the crisp night air. We were well out of sight of the palace when I grabbed his horse's reins and almost dragged him to a halt. "Listen," I whispered. He did not hear it at first, the low scratching sound of demons walking among the trees. They tended to rip the bark from the trees and rub the pieces together to what end I have never known. A great stench wafted on the wind, and we covered our mouths against their fetid odor. "There," he pointed with his sword. "I know of a small depression in the woods. They're probably holed up there." Once we were over our initial astonishment at demons being so close to the palace, we investigated their encampment to learn that there were only 6 demons and one of their beasts. Only 6 and a beast, I thought to myself. I really was at that border too long. We agreed the 2 of us could ably handle 6, and I felt the beast would not be much more of a problem. I told Arknan it was similar to the beasts I had witnessed at the border, specifically the one that gored Kevyn, but instead of horns, 2 great tusks protruded from its lower jaw. We sent the horses back, as the beast would make short work of them, and slowly approached the vermin. As Arknan had never before encountered a beast, he volunteered to engage the demons, and silently dispatched the 2 standing watch. Another wandered into the night, presumably to look for the other 2, and I made short work of it. I climbed a tree over the beast, and when Arknan was in position, I dropped onto its back. It reared up and tried to throw me, but I plunged my sword into the back of its neck. It roared, but did not die as I jabbed it, over and over, repeatedly burying my sword where I was certain its spine should be. As the sword cracked at the hilt, I realized its bones must be too strong for the thin blade. I cast the ruined metal aside, and I crawled forward on its head, grabbing on to coarse, slimy bits of hair to steady myself until I was within reach of its eye. I plunged my dagger into the cloudy orb, digging my fingers into its skin as the head thrashed about. "Laterra!" screamed Arknan, throwing himself on the beast in an attempt to help. "Stay clear of the teeth!" I shrieked, dragging myself further up its skull, stretching my arm inside its head until I was in past my elbow. Again it roared and tried to shake me, but I pushed harder and farther, as long as my arm would reach, now to my shoulder, and twisted my dagger in its brain. It let out a final bellow and collapsed in its death throes. Arknan grabbed my free arm and pulled me from the beast's corpse, and I rolled onto my back and gasped for air. "I can't believe you killed it," he said as he panted, "or that you've killed others like this." I saw that he was covered in blood, and I did not envy the burns he would soon be suffering. "Their blood is not caustic like the demons," I said. "Believe me when I say that you should always opt for the beast." He smirked as he helped me to my feet, reiterating that he hoped never to encounter such a creature again. We dragged the demons' bodies around the beast and burnt them, but not before I broke off a tusk. The habit of taking trophies is hard to break, and I hoped the size of the tusk could help illustrate the size of the beast as I described it to Elmar. I smiled, hoping that my first hunter would be pleased with our success. We walked back to Tegern, cursing the entire way that we had sent our horses on without us, even though it was the proper thing to do. The moon had traveled far across the sky by the time we returned, quite giddy from exhaustion and from being in such a skirmish. Elmar met us on the road, clearly beside himself with worry. Where have you been? He demanded of us. Your horses returned riderless shortly after you set out. We have been searching the area for the two of you. We came upon 6, my lord, Aucoin said, and a beast. At Aucoin's words, I produced the tusk, which was almost as long and wide as my forearm and my shattered sword. Aucoin went on, giving a full report to Aylmer as we walked back to the gates. Once inside the palace complex, Aucoin even offered to take the first hunter's horse to the stable so Aylmer could speak with me alone. He was silent as he walked me to my rooms, then swept me into his arms as I was about to open my door. I am covered in gore, I protested. Let me at least wash the beast from me. Aylmer mumbled something about not caring what I was covered in, but respectfully waited in the corridor while I bathed. My intent was to retire after he left, so I put on a simple white nightdress, which was sleeveless and hung to my ankles. I had not considered the gossamer fabric, and when I reopened the door, his eyes lingered for a moment on my breasts. I moved across my arms, but he again pulled me to him. After he held me for a moment, he began to examine my neck and arms for wounds. I am unhurt, I promise, I said as I freed myself. I have no cuts, and the blood only burned the small of my back. He demanded to see it, but due to my state of dress, I declined. He embraced me again, being careful of my back, and murmured how glad he was for my safe return. The things that went through my mind, first of fear when your horse returned without you, then I saw you laughing with him. I pushed him away, furious that he would insinuate such a thing. You thought what? I demanded. He said nothing aloud, but his meaning was clear. Do you think I am some kind of wanton? That I run off into the night with whoever is available? Is that why you join Aucoin and I on patrols? To check on me? You know what you mean to me, Aylmer shouted in reply. How would I know? I demanded. You tell me nothing. You act as if you care, but you do not trust me. You treat me with suspicion and distrust when I have given you no cause. You place more weight on the words of others than on mine. I had had enough of these accusations. No matter what I felt for him, I would not continually defend myself against every rumor that reached his ears, or these baseless conclusions he seemed to invent. If he could not trust me, then I could not love him. Tara, he began, but my fury got the better of me. Leave my sight, leave my room, leave me alone, I screamed. We stood glaring at each other for what seemed like an eternity, and I wondered if he would go on his own. If he did not, I had not the power to remove him physically or authoritatively. Aylmer took a step toward me, and then turned and left as he slammed the door behind him. It seemed like only a moment had passed when I heard a knock at my door. I threw it open in my fury, expecting it to be Aylmer. How dare he return so quickly after I'd just thrown him out? However, it was not Aylmer. Instead, Finley leaned against the doorframe. Oh, I exclaimed as I hurriedly tossed a shawl over my shoulders. He raised an eyebrow, but thankfully said nothing about my attire. I thought you were Aylmer. I know, he said. I think half the palace heard you screaming at him. Finley stepped inside and shut the door, then led me to a seat before the fire. He sat across from me, studying my face while he waited for me to speak. I don't know what was wrong with Aylmer, I said, staring at my hands. He believes gossip and rumors. I tell him the truth and he still thinks the worst of me. Rather than ask me what is in my head or my heart, he just avoids me or leaps to conclusions. I laughed shortly to myself before I continued. First he thought I had something with Kevyn. No, first he thought I had something with Adher, then Kevyn, then Karen, and now Aucoin. I have not so much as laid a finger on them, any of them, or they on me. I tell him this, but he does not believe me. I don't know what he wants from me. My head drooped even further, and I leaned back in the chair. What he wants, began Finley as I raised my head, is for you to be his and his alone. I laughed a short, mirthless laugh as I considered Aylmer's actions since my return. He behaves as if he owns me, going off in a jealous fit whenever he sees me with another, but he has no right to me. Then he decides, without asking me, that I am running around with someone behind his back and avoids me for weeks. He acts as if we shared some great love before I left, but we were then, as we are now, huntress and first hunter, nothing more, I said wearily. So you did not share a great love? He inquired. Forgive me, but I remember things differently. I gave him a questioning glance, and he continued. You know, we hunters are very close with each other and very observant. The longing between the two of you was overlooked By none. I rubbed my aching head and leaned my elbow on my knees, desperately in need of their support. We may have, but we never acted upon it. To this day, I do not fully understand what we shared, if it was anything at all. I fear I may have imagined it. If you imagined it, he did as well, Finley said, and I looked up, my questioning glance telling him that I wonder how he knew what Elmar felt. He spoke of you, and nothing else, for days, weeks even. After we first met you in Brennus, we would be riding together, and he would see something that reminded him of you, like a flower, the color of your eyes, and he would drone on endlessly of his undying love for you. He did? He smiled to himself as he continued. After you kissed him that day you left, he was the happiest anyone has ever seen him. He began to plan for your return on that very day, plotting out the kind of life he would give you. Has he ever told you of these plans? I desperately hoped he had said something to his second, for I could no longer bear this guessing game. Finley stretched out in his chair as if he was settling in for a long tale. Many times he said he would meet you on the road, take you away somewhere peaceful and make love to you. I blushed and turned away, remembering how Elmar asked me to spend my nights with him. Is that all he wants from me? I asked, staring at the wall. No, sweetheart, Finley said hurriedly, taking my hands in his. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it that way. I hesitantly looked up and met his eyes, which were clouded with worry. I offered him a smile, willing myself not to misinterpret his words. Tell me more, I implored, but leave out any details that would make me blush. He returned my smile as he continued. Elmar feels very strongly for you, that you are his little one, and he has felt this way since the moment he set eyes on you. He thinks you should have fallen into his arms as if no time had passed since you left, since you had your farewell out on the roadway. For some time now he has seen you as his mate, and he thought you would feel the same. He's even mentioned binding himself to you. I leaned back in my chair, trying to absorb what Finley was telling me. A binding was not to be undertaken lightly, as the bond forged of it is eternal and unbreakable, even by death. For Elmar to want to become my bound mate was confusing. I did not understand how he could want something so dearly for 3 winters, yet avoid me based on groundless rumors. Why doesn't he say these things to me? I asked. I don't think he knows how. For all his great skill and experience, very little of it has had to do with love, he said kindly. What I can tell you is that Elmar does love you, even if he can't manage to show you properly. But may I ask you, have you told him of your feelings? I thought I had, I said, not sure if I was being fully honest in my reply. When he was avoiding me, while he thought I was with Kieran, was he trying to be noble and let me move on unfettered? When he joined Rakuten and me on patrols, was he just trying to spend time with me? And tonight, was he worried about me, and did I overreact? I remember the look on his face as he approached us. It was one of concern, not jealousy. My heart sank, convinced I'd finally irrevocably ruined things between us, while my mind raced as I tried to decide how to fix things between Elmar and I. Will he ever forgive me? I shakily asked, trying to hold back the tears. If what Finley was telling me was true, if Elmar felt that strongly for me, I had to make things right between us, even if we could no longer be together. I needed him to know how I felt, if only to salvage our friendship. He will, he said with a smile. With that, he stood to leave and ruffled my hair, as an older brother does to his sibling, mostly because he knew how it irritated me. Do you know where he's gone? I asked. I feel I need to speak to him. As any good brother would, Finley walked with me to where he had last seen Elmar and left me outside the arena. I found him on the playing field, sitting in the long shadows. He did not bother to raise his head as I sat beside him. I have been told that your plan upon my return was to sweep me off somewhere and have your way with me, I stated, not knowing how else to begin this conversation. Finley, he said under his breath. Do not be angry with him, I warned, for he only answered what I asked him. Why can you talk to him but not to me? I tried to talk to you. Somehow I cannot. Then we are at an impasse, I said simply. Why haven't you ever told me how you feel? It's hard to tell someone who isn't there, he said evenly. His words infuriated me, and my anger launched me to my feet. I paced in the moonlight as I shouted, That is what this is all about. I am now returned. You can tell me now. And I was here for 2 winters before I left. You could have spoken then. He remained seated, but I saw him clenching his hands. I did try to tell you, that day on the Hill of Torment, and you left me anyway. Because of another man, he said as his low voice rumbled across the empty arena. Do not speak ill of the dead, I railed at him. You told me nothing that day. You said I was lovely, nothing more. You didn't even say anything when I kissed you goodbye. You only act as if you want me now because you worry others may beat you to me. Elmar leapt to his feet, his eyes glowing with fury as he stalked forward in the moonlight. His large frame loomed over me. He was so terrifying in his anger. I shrank back, but he grabbed my arm. I comforted you that night because I love you. I let you go to the border when I could have ordered you to stay because I love you. I forced the Queen and Brent to agree to your foolish plan because I love you. I have loved you from the moment I set eyes on you. My arms ached where he gripped me, and I tried to squirm my way free. He realized he was hurting me and let go, but the sudden release caused me to stumble backward. Aylmar caught my waist, and as he held me steady, I met his angry gaze. When I spoke, my voice was calm. And I love you. But I cannot do this. He was taken aback by my words and dropped his hands from me, but I held on to him. I love you so much it hurts to be apart from you, but sometimes it hurts to be near you. You love me? He asked, bewildered by my words. Yes, I said softly. I have always loved you. Elmar did not move or speak, his eyes searching my face for some unknown sign. I dropped my arms and stepped back from him, covering my face with my hands while I tried to think of what to say to him, what could possibly help this horrible situation that was spiraling out of control, when he grabbed my shoulders and dragged me to him. Before I could protest, he was kissing me, not softly as he had that morning, but really kissing me, as passionately and deeply as he had 3 winters ago. All of my anger and frustration with him melted, and the outside world disappeared from my mind. You really love me? Elmar asked again. I love you, I confirmed. I really love you. He covered my face with kisses, all the while murmuring that he loved me. I was content to remain in his arms just to hear him say the words over and over again. I don't want to fight with you, not ever again, he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. All I want to do is talk to you. I only want to make you happy. I am sorry, my lady. I managed a weak smile, which he returned. The way you treated me, avoiding me when I first returned, and then tonight over Arknan, I feel like you were punishing me, that you were still angry with me for going to the border. I never meant to make you so angry. I whispered into his chest, again filled with my own despair. I looked down, knowing that my absence had hurt him greatly, and my behavior since returning had not helped matters. He pushed the hair back from my face and tilted my chin towards his. I was angry. Not when you first left. I was sad. But not angry. When you stayed longer than you were required, I thought you had found someone and you didn't want to see me, he said, his eyes full of pain. Then Kevyn said, There was no one. You know there was no one, I said as I held my eyes, trying to make him understand me with my intense gaze. When I let myself dream, it was always of you holding me again. As a child in my parents' court, my nurses would read stories of how 2 people would not be very fond of each other, and then they would share some sort of moment that made them fall in love and become inseparable. I always thought those to be the most ridiculous of stories, for how can you become not angry with someone who has been driving you mad for so long? I thought differently after we stood together on that sandy field, finally telling each other the few words that each of us needed to hear. I will never know why Elmar and I both had such dramatic and sudden changes of demeanor. Perhaps we just needed to finally say the word love aloud, but as I looked at him, I fell hopelessly, madly in love all over again. You are right. I should have spoken long ago. But believe me when I say I've been trying to tell you I'm in love with you since the day we met, Elmar said as he stroked my cheek. I could not tell you why you were in the Sola. Others would have thought that you were named so quickly because I favored you. You did not deserve to be thought of that way, as you are truly the most skilled huntress I have ever encountered, next to the Queen. As it was, whenever I went to observe the Nuvi, others would say that I was only there to admire you, which was partly true. After you were named, I tried to tell you every time we were together, but my courage failed me again and again. When you left, I thought I would be able to turn myself back to my obligations, but I could not." He was silent for a time, holding me with his strong arm as he wound his fingers into my damp curls. When he continued, his voice was hardly more than a whisper. "Every time I closed my eyes, I saw your face. Every dream I had was of you. I would wake thinking you were next to me, but I was always cold and alone. I thought my desire for you would drive me insane, and I swore that when I saw you again, I would tell you how I felt. But you returned, and I could hardly speak to you. I wish I had told you sooner. I should have told you sooner, the day you were named, but I thought I had time with you. Then the day came where you left for the border, and the day came where you did not return to me, and I thought it was too late for us. As we stood together in the moonlight, I could feel words welling up inside of me. Whether I needed to say them or he needed to hear them, I did not know. When I stayed, I thought I was needed. I thought Bryn needed me. I missed you so dearly. Killing them was the only thing that made me forget you, if only for a moment. There were so many, and they just kept coming and coming. They were endlessly coming, and I so wanted you to be proud of me. I am sorry I did not come back sooner. I did not mean to hurt you." Tears rolled down my cheeks and onto his chest as I continued. "When I returned to Tegernen and looked to the spot on the road, and you weren't waiting for me, I felt such despair I did not want to continue onward. I thought you had forgotten me, or you no longer cared. When I finally saw you riding to meet us, my heart leapt with joy, and when you held me, I hoped for the first time that you loved me like I loved you." Elmar stroked my cheek with his thumb, gently wiping the tears from my face as he replied, "No amount of time apart could dampen my love for you, and I will always be proud of you," he said. "Bryn told me that you remained because the attacks were unending, and it made me want you to return to Tegernen all the more for your safety. Every time Bryn came back to report, I only asked her about you until she demanded to know if I had any interest in the other 19 hunters." "She never told me," I said in surprise. He uttered a small laugh. "That is typical of Bryn. I gave her direct orders to give you messages, and she refused. She said she would not get involved in our personal affairs." I pulled away from him, using the corner of my shawl to wipe the rest of my tears. The quick tug caused it to fall from my shoulders, and I was again before him in the thinnest gown I possessed. He approached me and placed his hand on the nape of my neck and gently drew me back to him. "You truly are a vision," he murmured as he tenderly turned my face to his. I put my arms around his neck as he bent to kiss me, softly at first, but then with a lustful passion I had never experienced. I responded to him without thinking, my body craving his. Elmar moved his hands up and down my arms and then across my back as if he was trying to acquaint himself with every bit of exposed skin, when he impulsively lifted me against him. His hands supported me under my thighs, and I wrapped my legs around him as his lips caressed my neck. "Am I too heavy?" I asked as I heard him groan, and while he said no, he dropped to his knees, keeping me in his arms. Elmar's hand found its way under my gown, up on my bare leg to my side. Then he shifted his weight, and I was on my back, below him. I was momentarily distracted by the sand as it scraped against my bare skin, but then Elmar was kissing me again, and all I could think of was how much I wanted to be with him, wanted him to take me. My hand slipped under his tunic, and I felt the muscles of his back rock hard with the tension of holding me. I could feel him against me, straining against his clothes, pressing into my leg, and his hands were around my waist as his mouth moved lower to caress my breasts. I heard my dressed hair, and I suddenly remembered where we were and what we were about to do. "Elmar!" I cried, catching his hand between my hands. "Not like this." My words roused him, and he came back to himself. He saw my crumpled state. He quickly withdrew his hands and pulled down my skirt, then helped me to sit up. After I assured him I was all right and shook some of the sand from my hair, he said without meeting my eyes, "Forgive me, my lady. You deserve much better than me." "What I deserve is another question," I said, "but I only want you." I smiled to show that I was not angry with him. After all, I had wanted him as well, and if we were not in the middle of the arena, I do not think I would have stopped him. "Surely your great plan did not involve making love in the dirt." "Sometimes," he said with a sly look on his face, and I laughed again. As he pulled me to my feet, I winced in pain, and he turned me around to examine my back. "Your burn has begun to weep," he said. "How much of its blood got on you?" "A small amount, I think," I replied, trying to remember the kill. It had been above me, and I plunged my sword upward, causing the blood to run down my arm. "It may have pooled inside my vest," I said. Aylmar replaced my shawl about my shoulders, and we quietly entered the sola, where he retrieved a few ointments and some bandages. Once he had what he wanted, I turned to leave through the main entrance, but he stopped me. "You cannot walk back in this state," he said, and looking to my feet, he exclaimed, "You're not even wearing shoes." "Oh," I said as I looked down. "I had forgotten. I left quickly, my only thought to find you." He smiled and kissed my forehead, and we again went to the entrance of the tunnels. "Please, may I walk this time?" I asked. "No," he said firmly as he lifted me. "Not only are you hurt, you are also barefoot." I sighed, knowing that argument would not change his mind, and we were quickly before my door again. He did not set me down until we were inside, and he began to speak of the various creams he had brought with him. I stood before him, too shy to meet his eyes while I spoke. "I think I need to begin with another bath," I said timidly. I must have looked horrible, with sand in my tresses and dirty feet. "Then bathe," he said, and I slowly raised my eyes. I had never been one to be embarrassed by nudity, for bathing in the Sola will quickly strip you of all shreds of modesty, but I could not bring myself to do so in front of him. He understood my meaning and dragged a chair to the far corner. "Call me when you are done," he said. I peeled the gown from me, shocked to learn that it was torn almost to my waist. It had also become embedded in the burn, and I struggled not to cry out as I pulled it free, for I knew that Aylmar would be at my side in an instant if he thought I was in pain. Gingerly, I stepped into the water, knowing how much it would hurt, and bit my lip the entire time I washed. As I stepped out, I noted that he still kept his back to me, and I wrapped a shawl around myself as I sat on the bench. "All right," I called to him without looking, and I heard the chair move on the stone floor. Aylmar moved my wet hair over my shoulder and tugged at my wrap, which I instinctively clutched to my breast. "Let me see it," he said gently, and I relaxed my grip. He pulled it away from my back and carefully touched the border of the welt. "This may be the worst blood burn I have ever seen," he said. "Will it heal?" I asked over my shoulder. "Of course it will," he reassured me as he began to spread something cool across my back. "But I will bring a healer to look at it." "I never needed a healer for a simple burn in the past," I scoffed, remembering all of my past burns. "We used to enjoy them. They offered us some warmth." Aylmar rose, having completed salving my wounds, and took my hand. "You are no longer surrounded by Bryn's lawless ones," he said, "and I will order you to see one if I have to." He led me to my bed, averting his eyes from the cloth that hardly covered me, and told me to lie on my stomach. He pulled a blanket up to my waist, explaining the ointment needed to dry before he could cover it, while gently pulling away my damp wrap so I would not be chilled. I crossed my arms under my chin and leaned my head to the side, laughing to myself. "Some of your hunters are in such awe of you that they won't speak your name aloud," I said when he asked what was so amusing. "What would they say now if they saw you acting as my nursemaid?" "If they saw me now, I would chase them from the room to ensure your rest and to keep them suitably afraid of me," he said with a smirk. He sat on the floor at eye level to me, and I touched his hair. "I would fall in love with you now if I wasn't already in love with you," I said, as he turned his head and kissed my open palm. After all I had put him through, he still showed me such tenderness it made my heart swell in my breast, and I was grateful for his attention. He leaned forward and gently touched the burn, stopping to kiss my shoulder on the way. "The salve has dried," he said, as he brought the blanket up to cover the wound. At my request, he went to the chest that held my clothing and retrieved a dress, then politely turned his back while I pulled it over my head. "I will let you sleep now," he said, as I lay on my stomach again. I caught his wrist, trying not to flinch as the gesture caused pain to shoot across my back. "Please don't go," I implored. "What if I needed you during the night?" "As you wish," he said, brushing his fingers across my cheek. "I'll stay before the fire." He tried to straighten, but I pulled him back to me. "No, stay here, with me." My eyes were as wide as saucers as I gazed up at him and tried to find the words to explain what I was feeling, that I could not be separated from him now, not when I finally knew he loved me. I thought that I must look ridiculous laying on my belly with my hair soaking wet and an awful blood burn covering my back, and wondered if he would want to remain with such a wreck. Aylmar crouched in front of me, so close our noses almost touched. "Are you sure you want me to stay, after earlier?" he asked softly. I was suddenly and acutely aware of my own near-nakedness, and while I did not want him to misunderstand my intention, I could not bring myself to let go of his hand. "I am not trying to taunt you," I said. "Would it be wrong for you to stay?" He placed his hand on my shoulder and leaned even closer to me. "I don't think you could tease anyone. You are so pure," he said, and I felt his warm lips on my forehead. I heard the rustle of clothing. Discerning from the noise, he only removed his shirt and boots, for I did not look at him, and felt him move onto the bed beside me. I instinctively reached for my favorite fur coverlet and pulled it between us before I opened my eyes. When I did, I saw him leaning on his elbow, and I giggled, burying my face into the fur. "When my Saphira comes in the morning, I don't know how I'll explain. She will never believe we were only sleeping. I charmed the door. Only you or I may open it." I had forgotten how Aylmar was much more adept with magic than I was. After Finley taught me to make fire, the opportunity was there for me to expand my knowledge, but my lack of comfort with the subject prevented me. "I am sorry about earlier," I said, looking into his eyes through the silky strands of fur. "Sorry for what?" he asked, pushing my curls back from my cheek. "For making me tell you that I love you? I am a fool for not telling you long ago. I wish we had fought this way many years ago, if this would have been the result." He kissed my forehead, continuing to smooth my hair. "I'm not sorry for that. If I'd known I only needed to yell at you in the middle of the arena to get you to be honest with me, believe me, I would have." He smiled at my words, but I looked down at the fur as I told him the reason for my apology. "I mean, for afterward, for making you stop like that. That's what I'm sorry about." He moved closer to me, twirling my hair around his fingers, and murmured in my ear, "You have nothing to be sorry about. I am the one who should apologize," he said softly. "I should not have let things get to that point. You were right. Of the many nights I dreamt of making love to you, it was never in the dirt like an animal. You are far too dear to me for that." I moved onto my side and nestled closer to him, and he put his arms around my shoulders. "These dreams, what are they like?" I asked timidly, touching his smooth muscled chest with only my fingertips. He brought my hands to his lip and kissed it before placing my palm over his heart. "I would rather show you than tell you," he said with his sly grin. "But not tonight. My love, you are safe with me." "Call me your love again," I said as I moved to the crook of his arm and laid my head on his chest. "My love, my heart, my soul," he murmured into my hair. "You are all of these things to me, and more." I looked up at him as I tried to force myself to stay awake, to make this moment last forever. My eyes were so heavy, and I yawned against my will. "Rest now," he whispered. "I will be here when you wake up." I let my lids fall shut, and if I dreamed, I do not remember. My next memory is of me waking in stifling heat, as if fire was consuming me. I threw off the bedclothes and tried to tear the dress from my body, but I was so soaked in sweat it clung to me. My throat was hot and parched, as if desert wind howled through it, and I tried to stand and go in search of water. I heard Aylmar call my name as I fell to the floor and slipped from consciousness. All right, that was chapter 12. Got a little spicy there. I don't remember it being that spicy. I thought it was more of a general idea, kind of. I hope it doesn't get too graphic, because I'm not like in love with that idea of reading graphic materials on the internet. I'm more of a implied kind of person. My mom used to love those Harlequin romance books, and I just never got into them. Alright, so again, that was chapter 12. And next week will be chapter 13. This is a collaboration with the Beauty Ninjas. Go down below. There's a playlist. Check out all the other ladies. Find out what they're doing for their Mask Mondays. There's also a playlist of their previous chapters I've read down there if you need to catch up. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. All that good stuff is below. I hope every single one of you has an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
Troubles on the mind, hands around your throat, out in open waters trying to stay afloat. Remember to forget the